T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, my friends, welcome to another episode of the Launch Sequence Podcast, episode 83. Now, this is the third episode in a series I've been doing this December where we look back at the year, we look at 3.18, the current patch that's going on in PTU, and we say a couple of things we think might be coming next year. We've had on Griffin Gaming, Morphologist, Astropub, Execute, and this week got two great guests, two people I'm very excited to hear talk about this stuff. A returning guest, SaltEMike, and also Berks, a newcomer. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, doing excellent. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. This will be my last episode of the year, so we have to at least get into a couple of fights, maybe some yelling, somebody storms off, some classics.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
me versus Berks. I banned him in my chat this week.
I watched you guys on SaltEMike, your show, I think, earlier this month or maybe last month. It was like in the last few weeks. Really good talk. Yeah. So I look forward to hearing some more of that stuff, I think, today. But we're going to start out today really getting a little bit of introductions in because, Salty, I know you've been on here before, but would love to tell people again where they can find your stuff, who you are, what you do. And Berks, would love if you could tell everybody kind of what you do in the Star Citizen community as well. So why don't we start with you?
Sure, yeah. So basically what I do in the Star Citizen community is I just really create an environment for people to have fun and experience the game together. I used to be a little bit more PvP oriented, and I still am, but I like doing a little bit of everything. So anything from bounty hunting to doing we've done group mining, we've done trading, testing out literally any and every feature, just seeing what everything that Star Citizen has to offer, and we do it as a community. So I think that Star Citizen is a game that's better played with people, and streaming, my favorite thing to do is interacting with people, talking to people. So whenever I'm streaming, that is exactly what we're doing. We're having fun together and we're hanging out.
Yeah,
Cool,
and
man.
I guess not too much different from me. I'm definitely less PvP oriented, but I love streaming on Twitch. SaltEMike everywhere on all socials and stuff like that. If you wanted to find me, but it's very similar situation where it's all about interaction, and that's also where Star Citizen is its strongest, is when you're interacting with other people. It can be so difficult and people shy away from it, but because of all the bugs. But man, when it's going, and like yesterday I had just an amazing experience. There was a bunch of us playing. We did security post Korea, and those are the moments that it's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember why I love doing this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to remember those moments, but when they happen, you're like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I think 3.18 is kind of introducing some more of those moments, which will, I think people are going to enjoy 3.18 definitely more than the last couple of patches, and maybe more than a lot of the other ones we've gotten. For anybody who's watching on the video, I'm just realizing now, if you're looking at Berks' name, it says Berks, not Beaks. I know the R looks kind of like an A, but I promise it is spelt correctly. I just realized that.
Copy that. I didn't even see that. I'm rebranding again.
Beaks, Captain Beaks. So how long have you guys been, both streaming and playing, or rather following Star Citizen, I guess is the best way to go?
I'm 9 years. That was 9 years streaming, 8 years a partner. Was what we realized in March that'll be 8 years or 9 years, and then I was a backer a little while before that. So yeah, it's been a long time.
A veteran.
Yeah, it's wild. I've been streaming Star Citizen for 4 years now. I've been streaming for about 4.5, and when I found Star Citizen, I really fell in love with it. I have always been sort of like a sci-fi space fan, loved space, wanted to be a astronaut whenever I was younger. Then I realized you had to go to school forever and had to be really smart. And I didn't want to, be or do any of those things. So I wanted to be an astronomer, and then I realized the same thing. And then, I gave up and just decided to look into space as sort of a hobby. And then whenever I found Star Citizen, I was introduced by a friend. I actually saw SaltEMike. He was one of the first streams I saw. And I did not like Mike back then. I was like, this guy is he's so my
I think I was
game.
so much worse then, though.
That
Like
may have
it
been
was,
true.
those were some tough times for me in
It
this game.
was, I mean, that was around like 3.8, you know? That was around like 3.6 where you
Yeah.
would step onto a ship and the whole ship would explode.
Yep.
1 out of 3 times. So it was a rough time for Star Citizen, but at the time, I had the rose tinted glasses on, so I saw this person being critical about this game that I just saw and fell in love with. And but obviously that's not true anymore. I've grown to love and respect Mike as a creator and a friend. But it's been a wild ride, 4 years. And I definitely didn't expect to be where I'm at in the community now. And yeah, super thankful, and it's been a lot of fun. So
Oh man, traded those real life stars for in-game stars.
that's right.
Still going to space. I like it. Well,
Heck
we've
yeah.
got some years between us. Some ups, some downs, definitely some frustrations. So I would like to start then by talking about the last year, 2022. It's kind of a weird year, an important one, but definitely weird. And I think really where I'd like to start is what were your expectations going into this year between what you saw they were working on, what CIG was saying themselves, kind of like what were you expecting to happen?
You want to go first on this?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
So when I was looking forward to this year, I knew that this was going to be a very slow and rough year in terms of the development for Star Citizen. And I wasn't looking at it in a negative light. I just was looking at it in this was the year a lot of, critical backend stuff was going to get focused on, and it needed to be. And so when we were opening up the year, I was actually in the middle of a break from Star Citizen just because I was so burnt from 316. It was not the patch for me. A lot of my gameplay loops that I enjoy were in a really tough spot. And I mean, bounty hunting was completely broken, which is my favorite thing to do in the game. And so I was taking a break. And when I finally came back, when 317 PTU dropped, which was like April, it hadn't really nothing had really changed that much, and I didn't really expect it to. And there has been some good content this year, but I think overall this year pretty much panned out the way that I expected it to.
Yeah, I had low expectations, and I feel like it still didn't meet them. Is sort of where I was with it. I definitely had low expectations. I knew, hey, PES was a big focus, and that was going to be really problematic. But the the thing that the previous year set for me with like 315, 316 was that they were really going to focus on the stability and the quality of life of the patch updates.
Yeah.
And this year did
Yeah.
not have the stability or quality of life that the previous year did. And, bad luck, whatever it was, that's kind of where my expectations were not met. Uh, I also think that, I would have expected a few more featureful patches and things like that than, just 318. But for me, once 318 is now in the PTU, it kind of, if you asked me this a week ago, I would be a little bit more disappointed than I am now because PTU's out, the features look good. Patches obviously not great, but the like stability isn't, but the features seem good. And yeah, I mean, I think we all had low expectations, but yeah, um it still didn't meet it. This for me personally rivaled 2016 into 2017, the wait for 3.0.
Ooh,
Um,
that's rough.
as far Yeah, because the difference then, I mean, you got to remember is I'm not just like somebody who just plays the game for fun. There's obviously like this other element of streaming it and wanting to have fun and be entertaining and have people enjoy being around your streams. And it's been hard to do that playing Star Citizen because nothing's new, nothing's changed. There's been like, what do you do when you're a Star Citizen content creator? You kind of check out the new stuff, you talk about it. And when there isn't a lot of new things to talk about, it's like, damn, this year kind of sucked. And the difference between then and now is everything is known. Then there was so much unknown. There was so much time for a conversation about
Yeah.
what it would be like. So there was this extra element of like the mystical 3.0 and oh, this will be so cool when I get to go do this. So those kind of conversations carried you through that year. Where this year it was like, yo, where the hell's 318? What's going on? Where's my PES, bro? I just want to deal with the bugs now so we can get to the next stuff, kind
Yeah.
of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Honestly, what you're saying.
Long story, but sorry. That's
No,
my
no.
expectation.
It's good. I like the thing you said back then there were things we didn't know, and now there are things we do know. Kind of a different application of that same thought, but that's how I felt at the beginning of this year versus now. Like at the beginning of this
Okay.
year, we still didn't know that iCache didn't work. Like we were coming out of 316 and we're like, okay, so now the next question I was going to ask you guys was about features you were expecting this year that didn't make it. But I mean, I was looking at, like you said, some stability, quality of life improvements, additions to the new player experience, things like that definitely didn't get into the game. And it's also, like you said, with 318, now that we have it in our hands and we get to see the features and play them, it feels better than before when we were just kind of like, we know this is what you're working on, but how well is it actually going to work? Is it actually going to be good?
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm definitely also in a better
Hmm.
place about at least the immediate future of the game now than I was, say, a week or a couple weeks ago. But going back to that
Sure.
question I mentioned, what is like a feature or something significant you thought we would see this year that just didn't show up? Besides pyro or something obvious.
Yeah, I think that optimist. There are two sides of the coin, right? Or I guess we really should say three, right? This is a three-sided dice. The community. It's like there are optimists, pessimists, and then there are people right in the middle. And I think that we're ending this year, if you ask me, with right in the mindset of the people who thought right in the middle. Some people were speculating server meshing would come this year. I didn't think that myself. I was hoping that we even got PES, but I'm really glad now looking at the this patch. It feels worth it. But I think the one thing that I thought was going to be this year that was a pretty big telltale for me, and this isn't a feature, but rather it is pretty interconnected to development, was I actually thought the Banu Merchantman was going to come this year. I thought it was going to make it for the IAE.
Yeah.
And if you would have asked me January 1st of 2022, if the Banu Merchantman was going to make it, I would have said, yeah. I mean, it feels like we've been waiting for our next capital ship for long enough. It felt like, maybe enough progress had been made. Obviously there was a lot behind the scenes that didn't happen and still haven't happened. But yeah, I definitely, if I could say the thing that concerns me the most at the moment with development is not the features, not the gameplay, not if Star Citizen's ever going to be finished, but where's these ships
The ships
that are taking forever? So
Well, I mean, how crazy was that when they did the year in review and they talked about what ships and vehicles they delivered? It was like, whoa. There was like nothing of like major note here. I guess the Hull A, did that come out this year? That's like
Yeah,
kind
did.
Hull
of
A
Yeah.
was
Thank
this
you.
year.
it was
But
317.2, I think.
yeah. I'm actually going back to the guy who posts the Reddit Odysseus Ithaca, the guy who posts
Yeah,
the
Odysseus,
Reddit
yeah.
roadmap stuff.
Mhm.
I'm trying to look back at what was sort of planned for this year and what didn't make it.
Right. But
So
we didn't know much because of the way the roadmap was going.
NPC taxi missions,
Right. That was supposed to
hacking.
come last December. Like those
Yep.
two were planned for 2021.
Yep. And at the time of this one, they were pushed back, I guess.
Yeah.
This was a 317 plan. Persistent hangars. Oh my goodness.
Honestly, a lot
Yeah,
of the
there's
things that I'm like I guess maybe naively thinking we could see next year. I don't know too much about the hacking and the persistent or the passenger missions because they still don't really talk too much about that. But persistent hangars, yeah, I think there's a good chance we could see that next year just because of the cargo refactor and where they have to go with that.
Yeah. I figured we'd get persistent hangars after PES, like that was needed first.
Mhm.
So I didn't think we were going to get persistent hangers this year unless we got PES first. And when they confirmed that it wasn't coming in 318 back in like July, I think, is when they said it wasn't going to come or they took it off. I wasn't surprised.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at this was in February or something.
Yeah.
So,
And going back to that roadmap, it's kind of one of the big focuses of the early year, especially from outside media, was the big change to the roadmap. The shortening of how far in the future you can see on the roadmap release view, and the, I guess, more focus on the progress tracker. Also, although they didn't really focus on the progress tracker, but do you guys think that that change panned out for them? Was that a good move on their part? And how did it, I guess, did it pan out for the community too? Because those are two different answers, I think.
I'll let Mike answer this first.
oh, dude, I fought for this so hard. I believe like really, really strongly that this was a really good idea. Like the way they went about it was not great. The comments that they made about roadmap watchers and how it's all our fault and things like that, so
Oof.
that was bad delivery. But the actions are what I tried to focus on, and I tried to have people always think that I have the worst like the worst point of view on things, is like negative one, but I was always really defending this. I go, it's just way better to not know until it's actually going to come. People want to know everything that's happening at CIG, but I don't think that we're entitled to know everything that is happening at CIG in terms of their year out plans because we bought some spaceships, right? I think we're entitled to know what's coming soon and provide feedback on that. And that's what we're here for. We're here to play early builds and to be able to provide feedback on that and be a part of that. But I don't think we need to be a part of their yearly plans. It doesn't make any sense. And all it does is there's no wins that come from sharing things that far out. There's only disappointment. So why do it?
Yep. I absolutely agree. I've actually, since I started playing the game, I've been pro removing the roadmap completely. And I know that's a sort of an even hotter take, but some people think that we need like complete transparency. And I used to I worked in film for almost 8 years. And as someone who worked in film, I worked on, studio projects, commercials, all sorts of stuff. Things in production like this tend to always take longer than predicted.
Yeah.
And there's always unforeseen consequences. And sometimes things happen really fast. Like a great example of this is the multi-tool. It came out of nowhere. It's probably one of the greatest things that's ever come to Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Whoever made it needs a raise for sure.
Do more things.
Or rather, the gravity attachment is the main thing I'm talking about. But the multi-tool in general is a great tool, and now we have like a salvage piece for it. And I think that's a great addition to the game. And we had no idea it was coming. It was a surprise pretty much to everyone. And it just like popped up in 312. And I remember that single tool changed the way that everyone played and enjoyed Xenothreat. It was like Xenothreat is now really, really fun. It went from being this buggy mess where you had to pick up boxes and it's still buggy to pick up boxes, right? They get stuck in your hands. Like sometimes they get yeeted. Sometimes they teleport, whatever. They, drop them randomly and you have no control over it. And the multi-tool just works. Like, wow, what a huge improvement. But then, you have other stuff that, people get, quote unquote promise because it's coming in the next roadmap and then it gets removed. Just leads to disappointment. So I love to play Star Citizen for what it is, not what it could be. Not what it's going to be 10 years from now. And so I don't look at the roadmap. I can't tell you the last time I looked at the roadmap. I don't care because I believe in transparency and I think that CIG is doing the right thing being transparent. But I think that looking at the roadmap religiously is just going to lead to disappointment, I think.
Yep.
It's fair. It definitely seems like it helped in what you guys are saying in terms of like setting people's expectations and not letting, I mean, Mike, you had a great point. It doesn't add anything other than our ability to like hype or be excited or be interested in what's going on. Call them out, yeah, on the negative side of things, but also just like for people like us who are making content even, making videos about stuff that's a little further out, that's what we lose. On the other side of that thing,
how do you feel? Because you focus on that.
yeah,
Like that's a big part of your content.
and I personally really like it.
Okay.
You don't need the roadmap to understand what might be a year out, right? If you're looking at the monthly reports, if you watch their sprint reports when they do them on ISC, you can kind of get an idea of like what is that far out. So it's not that big of a loss, in my opinion. It's basically just like Berks said, it leads to more surprises, which overall are just good. Like if we had the release view for a year out, we would have known that racing as a profession was coming at the beginning of the year. But we probably would have seen it get thrown between different patches and like maybe delayed here or brought forward there. But instead, we just got it when it came out, and it was really nice. It was a nice surprise. And as there are more and more features that might be getting finished up, we'll probably get that more and more often. I think the shorter roadmap is better for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
agree.
So that was the communication on that though was that was
It
rough.
was great.
A little rough, yeah. A little rough.
Which is what it usually comes back to with Star Citizen announcements is kind of like how they go down.
Yeah. And I gotta be honest, I'm always curious to see how CIG delivers stuff. Another great example of this recently, CIG sticking their foot in their mouth is the whole Pisces getting the skin at the IAE.
Yep.
Which personally I think the skin's ugly and I don't care. I think the default skin on the C8R looks better than the
Looks good.
IAE skin. I think it looks great. I think it looks better. Now it's like the wording that they put on Spectrum made it sound like all the Pisces were gonna get it, and so that's where I'm like, oh, they messed up, and they should have just done it. But the CIG definitely, to this day, they're still learning how to communicate with the community, which I get it. They're all humans there, right?
Yeah,
So
it's rough.
it's like I say stupid stuff all the time.
Exactly. Sometimes I see what they say and I'm like, man, I would have said that. This is why I don't.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Or
stuff.
like they're not thinking through the multiple lenses of like how we'll see stuff once it releases the way that it does. Like maybe in their heads.
Test like what do they call it when you test a like food out or a commercial out with a group
focus
of
group.
people, a focus group. There's no focus group of like backers for them to be like, so we're thinking of calling everybody roadmap watchers. What do you think? and then people go, yeah, that's not a good idea. Like maybe don't do that, but share all the the good ideas that you have and not your frustrations in a post that is not meant to be a place where you share your frustrations about the community.
Yeah, you can kind of. I mean, there are definitely ways to communicate those frustrations without pissing people off about it, because I mean we all I think understand that the Star Citizen community can be a little intense at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're passionate. A horrendous human being,
but I think
more
as
than once.
Reasonable people, we can understand that it's usually the 10% who's really loud versus the 90% who's reasonable. It's always the unreasonable 10% that seem like 60% because they're talking way more, they're engaging way more, they have way more bad takes to say, and I've had a bad take or two myself, so I get it. But
I had one this week.
I think you mean you had a great take, but it's just it feels good as a backer when CIG is communicating with us properly. Like we are, also people who enjoy the game. Because I think most of us are pretty reasonable, I think that shows through the support for the game, so
getting back to the year overall 2022, what was or were some standout features that you saw this year? Something that the multi-tool was a great example. Berks, I think of like one of the best additions this game's ever seen. Like you said, it just changed the way that people got to play, kind of like maybe Soft Death will, but that was so simple and it was like applicable to so many things. What was something that really caught your attention this year in the same way?
Should I go first? I think probably the biggest change we got this year by far, without a doubt, was 100-player servers.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing is that a lot of people I don't feel like will admit this, it hasn't changed the game at all. I don't feel like Star Citizen is any different because of 100-player servers at the moment.
I
Um,
think you see more bounties.
yeah,
Probably.
you see more bounty, but I mean, I was hopping whenever
Yeah.
I couldn't find people. There's definitely more people per server, but I think fundamentally the game has not changed. There's just more people in one server. They're all still spread out, right?
The game
It's
world is
not
still
like
too big for it to make a massive
right,
difference.
right, right. I think 100-player servers are it's a small step on a large scale upgrade that will happen hopefully when server meshing comes in.
Yep.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood, rabbit foot out next year. But it's too early to tell, right? I think that 100-player servers though is a drop in the bucket of what it's supposed to be, if that makes sense. Yeah, because we're talking about Space DayZ, right? Is why I like to call Star Citizen a lot of times,
God.
but it's like on a trillions of kilometer scale with hundreds of points of interest. People are doing mining in the middle of nowhere and they're doing missions. And I think like you said, probably the biggest thing is rescue beacons and bounties. Those are the two things that have increased the most because of the 100-player servers. Everything else is just kind of more casual,
Okay.
Does a 318 PTU feature count?
I was thinking about that. I'd say go ahead. Yeah.
It's not going live, but
Yeah.
I just think the ability to spawn more than 3 ships is massive if you have an org or if you like to play with other people, and it gives players the ability to spend the endless amounts of money you can make to provide your friends with anything that they need at that moment. The way I have an org that like we wanted to focus on mining and like salvage and things like that.
Mhm.
And currently the way the game works is you can only sell from ships you own. So if you make an account that acts as an org to have like an org bank account and org ships, you can do that now. So you can actually have an org that has their whole fleet and you just launch ships for everybody. So if that all kind of sticks, that'll be the biggest feature of this year for me. But in terms of like 317 stuff, I would say even though it's not used, ship to ship refueling was a god tier implementation of a feature. It's super good UI, really good implementation. It's not hooked up into any part of the rest of the game to make it useful.
Yeah.
But if you look at it in a vacuum, you go, holy crap, like compare this to the first time you saw mining or another tier 0 feature.
Mhm.
It's like, well, yeah, compare it to inventory or something that came in and you're like, holy shit, this was really, really well done.
What do you think?
Uh,
Do you feel salvage is on the same level in terms of UI and implementation?
It doesn't need that really cool UI that you have there, but yeah, because I just think salvage is like this different. It's so incomplete. It's just hull stripping.
Mhm.
There's so many other pieces to this puzzle that are not part of it yet, but for what we have, it comes in with hull stripping on 2 different ships. The reclaimer, I flew with a crew of 5 2 days ago. We were playing. I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning playing. I go to sleep at 8 p.m. Okay, it was really fun. The uh the vulture's just a nice little solo thing, and the fact that it comes right away with multi-tool. So you have FPS, you have a mini ship, you have a big ship. It took mining a year and a half to get to this point. They did it in one patch. So,
Yeah.
well,
It's
sort of. Salvage has been worked on for how many years?
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a weird
I-
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that Mike is cheating. I didn't realize we could do P2 patches or features. But
Sorry.
I'll
sorry,
let you go back.
no,
You dig back into the cloud.
I think that PS and soft death, like I think that PS by itself is a really like it's definitely an amazing feature. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but
can't
you
see
don't
it.
you don't feel it.
It's hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a smaller scale, you don't feel it. But then you have soft death, right? mixed together with that. It's almost like PS and Soft Death really complement each other super well. And one of the tests that we did was we blew up a reclaimer, so we soft deathed it, and then we hard deathed it. Same result for both times. We went to an area, we blew it up. We went back to that same area a few minutes later after everyone had left. The area had despawned, and it was still there. And so it's so cool to think that there could be a battle over an outpost or Jumptown, for example, that's going to be coming up, and all of a sudden, someone could sneak in right after Jumptown's done. All the orgs are gone, all the PvPers are done. But guess what? There's tons of ships there, and here comes the vultures, here comes the reclaimers. They're sneaking in. And that's so cool to think about that now, from now on, not only are you going to have this extra facet to combat and survivability and, piracy and trading and all this different stuff, or just like general gameplay, but also on top of that, there's organic gameplay that's going to be produced by player made and player generated events. And I think that is so unbelievably cool. And there's going to be a story behind every one of these, pieces. And I think it's especially cool that even after hard death is what I'm assuming we're calling it.
Yeah.
The soft death has been blown up again and the ship is fully destroyed. That stuff still persists. The same as soft death, the same as a ship that is not dead. So very, very cool. Amazing feature. And I think that really stands out with soft death PES does.
Yeah, it does feel... Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say a funny story related to just PES and stuff. I went to the derelict 600i MSR today. And for those of you that may not know, they do have the like reinforcement cutlass that comes, except it would get blown up and then it always lands in the same place. So the stuff didn't go away and they were piling on top of each other. So there was this cutlass on top of 3 other blown up cutlasses just shooting its turret at all the other ships around. And because it was taller, it was able to hit ships that people like hid behind hills. It was so funny, dude.
That is emergent gameplay right there.
Today.
That's beautiful.
Yes. The game was playing itself.
Perfect for the salvagers. That's what we like to see, though. Honestly, that's the best part of like these video games. I think it happens with like immersive sims when the features start butting against each other and you see these weird things go on. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Going back to something you said, Salty, you mentioned that with the ship spawning, which I think is super good, and a feature a lot of people are kind of sleeping on because it hasn't it hasn't gotten much attention. I actually salvaged something and then loaded the salvage onto my friend's ship, and he was able to sell it at a TDD.
Yeah, because it's salvage.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. I believe this is the case at least. I think it's the same thing as like the rock. So you remember like you could just go into someone's inventory and pull it out?
Yeah.
It was kind of the same scenario where you didn't go through the process of buying it from a terminal, so it never was given an owner.
Okay.
But I think if you buy something from a terminal, it's going to be considered stolen.
Gotcha.
I loaded up a Caterpillar today, and the server crashed before we had the UI bug where you couldn't see the UI anymore. And I never found out if a couple of the boxes that I shipped over to my friend of Laranite, if he was able to sell them at no questions asked or a regular one.
I see.
Or what would happen. But yeah,
that got me so excited.
Testing some things out.
Gets me so
dude,
excited.
The salvage.
Man. Oh gosh.
The salvage stuff is pretty cool. It just, again, like I feel it's gonna fall the same fate of, but a lot better than refueling because it's like a little more interactive, but
it's not.
There's
no
real reason to do it yet.
Yeah, like there's no current in Star Citizen that like drives people to do this stuff for a reason. It's just like, hey, try out the new feature. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, where's the next one? We need that economy.
Yeah.
We really need that economy.
Yeah, we need something. I look at 318 and go, I'm really excited for these features, but I am also concerned of when will they feel repetitive. I think it's going to last a lot longer because 317 was just so much of the same that it's going to feel new and fresh for a lot longer than it maybe would have if it released in June, let's say, when we expected it to. But yeah, it's it needs a little salt and pepper on it, but everything's really
At least,
like Berks has said. Every feature I've tried, it feels really good.
mhm.
So
And even with like, especially with some of the more multi-crew capabilities of 318 with the cargo refactor and stuff, it does feel like that will also help it have some longevity. But when we get when we get engineering, I think it will really start to help flesh these things out.
yeah, hopefully.
Okay. I wanted to go back to something else real quick because we're talking about 2022, I actually wanted to finish up and move to 318, which we've been talking about. But first, you mentioned the Merchantman, Berks, as something that maybe we were kind of thinking would come this year. Now, the Merchantman has just been basically taken off the progress tracker. Like the scheduled work for it on there finished, I think it said in November, showing that they have officially decided to put that on the backlog until they could pick it up again. How do you feel about that? Like, what do you guys think about that move?
Oh, let's cancel Berks. He's going first. Here we go.
I'm fine with that, actually.
Yeah.
I have no problem with them taking their time to make ships. I have no problem with them taking as much time as they need. However, I do think that, and I understand that they like have to pay their bills and they have, they have a studio to pay for and employees to pay. Their company. They're about making money. However, it feels incredibly disingenuous to me personally that it's been 4 years since we had our last capital ship in game, which was the 890 jump. And here they are at the end of the year. People thought we were going to get our next one. I'm assuming we're considering the Banu a capital now. It's gotten quite
that's
big. It's huge.
You see that cargo hold?
Yeah, it's massive. And this is funny because I'm more confident about Star Citizen's development now more than ever. And I could care less about ships. I literally, if they never added another ship into the game, I would not be bothered. But that being said, I get worried for people who are new to the game or supporting the game and looking at these new shiny ships, and they're using terms like real gameplay and true modularity whenever they're selling their new concept ships, and people see this really cool ship and they get sort of, and I'm trying to be nice about this, but swindled into buying the ship that probably won't come out for years. And I think that tracks with what we've seen. And I think more than anything, I would love to see that team grow and for them to prove me wrong and start producing these ships at a faster rate. But I just get worried that them selling concept ships becomes okay. Well, 10 years from now, the game is complete, it's done, all the features are in, everyone loves it, but these ships still aren't here and they won't be here for a long time. Like that's what I get worried about. And if people are okay with that, like if you're buying the ship with that intent and that knowledge and then great. But I feel like CIG doesn't always do their due diligence in communicating how long these ships might take to produce. And it feels a little weird to me sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't want people to feel cheated out of their dream ship. Like they bought this nice shiny Lego set and it's Christmas morning, they're ready to open it, and then the parents walk in and they're like, hey, guess what, it's actually next Christmas, baby, you're getting it. Don't worry. But hey, we have this new Lego ship that you can put on pre-order for the following Christmas, and bye, let's go. Yeah, I don't know, I get worried for people, the community, that's all. I don't buy ships myself, but or I not anymore, but yeah, I just
Yeah, I
I
get you.
don't want people to feel swindled.
It's easier to
Yeah.
understand what's going on when you've been here longer.
Yeah.
Even if there was nothing wrong with it, right there. I won't say that. Even if there was no sort of, I guess controversial, like some of the ships take years to come out, you would still be looking out for players and being like, hey, you can buy ships that are in game, which will help you a lot more and do more for you than buying a ship that might be coming in 3 months. Even if it's coming in 3 months, this will still benefit you more. So just looking out for that like first experience kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing to point out about just the whole drama around the Banu Merchantman, I think Berks did a really good job of summarizing, just not necessarily just around that ship, but just the general kind of interesting things that they do. when ship sales are around. But the thing about the Banu Merchantmen that I thought that they were quite the opposite in terms of like their communication about in a very good way is on that Star Citizen Live or whatever it was called when they talked about it. They were very frustrated about what happened. You could at least I can just visually see the frustration in I think his name is Ben's voice and his mannerisms. And he also shared the fact that like the people that were working on that ship no longer work there for whatever reason, moved on to better pastures, different pastures, uh, got fired, whatever, right? They're not there and something happened. And what do we expect? So if
Yeah.
this wasn't the Banu Merchantman and it was the mine layer ship, would we have been as upset? I don't think so. I think it's because I mean we see it in the supporters chat that somebody put the price history of it starting at 250 and over from 2013 to 2022 is now $650 or something, right? Or $600. So there's all this time and all these things that this ship was supposed to look like it'd be and they raised it and it was this big and all these changes and then it never comes out. There's this thing around the Banu Merchantman, the whole Gib Banu Merchantman meme for many, many years, right?
Yeah.
So it all kind of came to a head at that point. But the thing is like, yeah, just to Berks's point, yeah, it is a company. And sometimes the people that are working on these things don't work there anymore. And like, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
You don't just like randomly put somebody on a spaceship then and finish it. They're gonna have to like train people up. New artists have to come in, and what are you going to do? Throw them on the most important ship in the game's history up to this point, probably, and expect them to do a good job? I don't think so. So shelf it. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. It is
No,
what it
yeah.
is. It's their marketing behaviors that go on top of it that people have the issues with.
Right,
I mean,
right.
who cares if the ship comes out later?
And
What
that's
are you going to do?
that's a good detail about the people moving on.
Yeah.
Honestly, you really laid it out, Berks, and then you followed up on it, Mike. It's like their company. It's hard to remember because we see the game side of all of this. We're in the game, we're looking at the game development. It's hard to remember for some people that like they're also a company. They've got HR people, they've got legal people, they've got all these different people who do things that have almost nothing to do with the game that they have to support. And they've got like people
Yeah.
moving in, people coming out, getting sick, having babies, all this stuff that can throw wrenches in their plans. So that kind of stuff's good to keep in mind. And
Yeah.
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 I
I want to clarify that I have no problem with concept ships. And I have a problem with concept ships that are 9 years old,
Yeah.
and then we throw in another big ship on top of that. Like, oh, come on. And I get it. Like, I get it. Like you're saying, they got to pay their bills.
True
Mhm.
I
modularity,
get
though,
it.
Berks. This
I
time
know.
it's true.
I know. I just, I, like I said, I want more than anything. It's not like I'm like, let's storm CIG's cap. Let's storm the headquarters.
Oh
and
God, don't say that.
That's not what I meant to say. I meant to say the headquarters.
Oh no!
Oh God.
I'm gonna get
It's
flagged on YouTube.
rewind time.
Oh no. Yeah. Storm the headquarters is what I meant. And let's protest CIG
boy.
and blah blah blah. That's not what I'm saying. I want more than anything for them to be like, hey guys, we're hiring 15 more people to work on these ships. Kind of like what they did with the missions team. The missions team had
Mhm.
one person on it for a long time, one, and now it's like almost 20.
Yeah.
Or it's like
They're growing
maybe
them
on the lower end of 20, 13, 14, something like that. And so that's a huge improvement. So I would love to see more people on the ships team. Love, just because that is where they're making their money. That's where people are putting their money. That's where people's hopes and dreams are, right? Like people want these ships. People paid for them. And
I'm gonna do X with this ship. Like that's
Yeah.
always the mentality around the
Yeah, well, the
excitement around Star Citizen.
X is what's really important, right? Like we need those features to
Exactly.
I
make the
agree.
ships matter.
No, I agree. I'm not
Ships
saying
enhance
like,
those things.
yeah, I agree 100%. But there are ships that are on the backlog that have their full features in game right now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the Apollo really jumps out at me as one that we should be getting sometime. Like that would be really nice.
Yeah.
But anyways, right before we jump into 318, there's one last question I want to ask you. We've heard it's actually become a meme for many. the game development will speed up. They're creating tools. They're working on tech. This tech and these tools will make it easier for them to build the game that they're trying to build and create more content in the future. Do you still believe in that? Do you feel like it's actually happening at all?
The floodgates.
The
The
Yes.
floodgates will open.
And I'm going to be off camera for like 30 seconds for this, but you guys go ahead. I'm still listening.
Yeah.
I do still believe in that. I don't believe in it until I still have hope that it will be. The communication around that has been very consistent around server meshing being a thing first, and then they will begin to open the floodgates of gameplay and all these other things. So I have remained very, I think, steadfast on this. Is like, it's very hard to demand change or expect this, that, and the other thing before server meshing comes in. We've heard multiple communications from multiple teams that they will have to redo their work for PES. They'll have to continue to redo that work for server meshing. So why bother building it at any significant state? So
Right.
once server meshing comes in, I don't know if development will ramp up, but they have no more excuses
Yeah, that's true.
for me.
That's true. So I don't believe that development will ever ramp up. I think the only way to ramp it up is to add more people onto the teams, or, create teams that help with the way that, development is processed or whatever. I don't know enough about the, game development to really say that part, but I do know enough about Star Citizen's development to speak to the fact that I don't think that the development is ever going to floodgate like people talk about, even after server meshing. And I think that's okay. I'm fine with that. I personally don't think that we ever need 125 systems in the game. I'm not sure we'll ever even get 125 systems. It's like if we had one system added every year, which would be huge, right? One detailed system every year, that would be massive. That means that it would take, 100 years. Even if we had 5 systems a year, which would be insane if we got 5 systems a year. Could you imagine?
That would be nuts.
Yeah, that would be nuts. That'd still be like what, 20 years before we got or 25 before we got all the systems. It's an insane timeline. So I think to just imagine that there's going to be a year where we get 15 or 20 systems all of a sudden out of nowhere seems a little ridiculous to me. But I think that that's unneeded personally. I'd be happy with just like 5 really detailed systems. I think there's even more they could add to Stanton.
But
to be honest.
But even like one system a year after they give us, let's say they do
Yeah.
Pyro, it takes another year to do Nyx, and then after that they're doing like one system every year, would be kind of a bit of a ramp up, yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely, it would be. I just don't think that seems like the next step in development for me. That doesn't seem like floodgate level.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I
just
don't
normal,
foresee
natural.
Yeah, it's like, I don't get me wrong, I could believe that. I could totally believe a system a year or a couple systems a year, but I could never imagine like, oh, it's going to be 2025, now we have 100 systems in game. Like if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
told me that, I would be like, you're out of your mind. But again, I don't think we need that. We need like a high sec system, maybe 2 high sec systems, a low sec system, and then a null sec like Pyro, and I think we're pretty much good to go. A Vandal system too, that'd be cool. And if they add other stuff on top of that, I think that's bonus. Now, I think with the general development of everything else, like ships and systems aside, I think that everything else is just going to go at normal speed for the rest of time until Star Citizen ceases to be. I don't think there's any reason for me to believe or anyone to believe that the development is going to ramp up after Squadron 42 or anything like that. Like, it's so funny because when I first played Star Citizen, I told people the game's 2 years out, and now I tell people it's like
always
5
2
to
years out.
7. Yeah, now I tell people it's 5 to 7 today. So it's funny how I have a longer timeline 4 years later.
Yeah.
Add
Add a year for every year you're in the project.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
I just don't
Oh.
look at it, just real quick, I don't look at it from like a system perspective for ramp up. I'm with Berks on that. I don't think we really need that many systems. And if they're gonna do it, they can't do it in this handcrafted way that they're doing now. This is just stupid at this point. If you're gonna do it and you want to deliver that many systems, it's got to be like
Yeah.
actual procedural systems, and they don't really like the idea of that, and it's kind of understandable. But for me, when I mean that I expect things to ramp up, I expect to see features come in a tier 3 state, not a tier 0 state, or whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by ramp up, just to clarify that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because like 318 feels like a ramp up, but really what it is it's a culmination of everything they've been working on this year,
Yeah.
right? So I think that we'll continue to get patches like that, but I don't necessarily think that we're gonna get like this
Every
You
patch
know,
is not going to look like 318.
300% like yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
All right. Speaking of 318, let's talk about it. It's obviously not a normal patch. It's been plenty of delays and expectations have been set and like things have happened. How has all this stuff bounced off of you? What do you think? Was the patch worth it? Was the whole year just like looking at it worth it? Do you think this lives up to the hype? What are your thoughts of it, especially now that you've gotten hands on?
This is so hard. Do you have a hard time with this too, Berks? Like
I think there is 20,539 reasons to love 318.
It's 40. I get 20,540 now. I get one extra entity when I freeze. But
Oh god.
the thing that I was gonna ask you is like obviously like view counts are up. Twitch is like, wow, there's lots of people typing in my chat now. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's
hype.
hard. It's hard to separate as a Twitch streamer the hype from the patch. The patch far exceeded my expectations so far though, and I'm trying to separate that. That is hard to do for me because they go hand in hand, but the bugginess expectations are what I expected, maybe even a little better than I expected, and the feature expectations were better than I expected. So, yeah, it was worth the wait for me.
Same. Yeah. And listen, I spend lots of time waiting in the menus to get into
Yeah.
318. So quite literally worth the wait. But I think that 318 incredible patch. Hype aside, I could put down the stream and still think very highly of it. I mean, some of the features and stuff that I've tested are absolutely incredible. I mean, a little bit. I don't play. If I didn't stream Star Citizen, I would play it about 10% of the time that I do now.
I get that.
I would play it much, much, much less. And I tell people that. I'm very honest about that. I do love the game, but I play to hang out with the community and talk to people. And so obviously there's been, like you said, an influx of people who are looking at 318 and looking for content that surrounds 318. But I think
it just makes it feel more fun than maybe it is. And I worry that like maybe I'm inflating my view of the patch because of that.
Potentially. But I think unbiasedly, I think it's an incredible patch. I think that it's a really great patch. I mean, because don't look at it based on the view count, but look at it based on I have my view count turned off. So
I do too, but
Same.
I get an email at the end of the day.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
I do too, but chat says it now, and it's like, whoa, there's more than 100 people here. Holy crap!
Yeah.
So
I get way too self-conscious if I look at it. I keep it off.
It's also
always
just
turn it off.
It's mentally,
any aspiring content creators, turn it off. Don't look at.
Act like there's 500 people in chat, no matter what. If you want to be a good content creator, act like there's 500 people in chat, whether you have one person or whether you have, 10,000, doesn't matter.
And then you turn it off, and there's 4, and you're like, okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the show. No, but I think that unbiasedly, based on what we've gotten this year, 318 is an incredible patch. I think that as a fan of the game, not a streamer, I am very impressed with the patch. I'm having fun with it, not because there's more people watching, but I'm having fun with it because, soft F, salvage, the way that the reclaimer works is part of salvage, but, really cool. The cargo refactor, there's, the new Jumptown update. There's the racing and the go-karts that are on the racetrack on Orson, and there's new missions, and there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, it and the Gen 12 stuff is being implemented now, and there's the
Have you
ballistic
tried out like
changes.
Star Marine or Arena Commander? I haven't tried
Nope.
Arena Commander yet. Star Marine, like, kind of getting like okay. It was like an interesting.
DJ
I was
Button,
like,
shout
whoa,
out.
this
Getting a
is
little
fun.
sweaty?
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun. It was
Cool.
not as ridiculously just like Bugfest that it normally was, and I was like, okay,
That's good.
this is good. But yeah, I mean, I just from to have that same like unbiased view on it, or attempt to at least, is the I've laughed and had more fun in the last 3 days from the moments that have happened in 318 than I have the entire year.
Yeah.
There's been more like hilarious, just like crazy fun moments. Like we were just playing with other people and everybody was engaged with it and excited to check it out, and things were happening. I mean, Security Post Korea yesterday, Berks, you were only with us for a little while. That was some of the most fun I've had ever, I'd say. That was wild.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was.
Part of it is like the people you're hanging out with, but the
Mhm.
other part was like they did a good job with that. It was crazy.
Well,
have you checked it out yet?
me?
Yeah, I'm assuming you did.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit, not to the level that you did. It was more like I showed up and then we shot some guards, and then we actually purposely wanted to go to prison, and then we got stuck on an infinite loading screen.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to check out the new prison content and it wasn't working at the time. And so we decided to put a pause on it. So playing with you was the only second time I checked it out.
Yeah.
But it speaks volumes when you're saying it might be the people I'm playing with. Well, it speaks volumes that there's content being added where you can play with people
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
that,
Exactly.
because it's like, if it was 317, would you have been playing with a group like that? Probably not.
No.
I mean, maybe Jumptown, excluding Jumptown, but who wants to play Jumptown right now when there's a huge, massive, super cool Jumptown update happening in
Yeah.
318,
Mhm.
right? So
The same
not me.
The same goes for those Orison missions. You couldn't, before this, you would if you wanted to run a combat mission with your friends, if you brought more than like 3 people with you, somebody wasn't going to get a kill. Somebody wasn't going to have any action. You go into a bunker and 3 people would
Yeah.
wipe out all of the guards. Now these Orison missions, I haven't tried it yet, but I imagine they're bigger because they use much more space and all the same stuff as the Siege of Orison. So that's more multiplayer gameplay you can get into, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. It feels like a different game. Like, even like NPCs have different behaviors now. I don't know if you
I
guys
got
have seen that.
smacked by one today.
Yes. Not only that, but like, have you guys seen the NPCs that whip out the little pistols and shoot
Yeah.
you?
No.
It's
Yeah,
so
but they're
cool. I
wearing
love
suits.
it. And I
They're
had
like
an argument
John
with
Wick, dude.
Yeah, I had
What?
an argument with
They're wearing a
someone in my
suit.
chat about this. They were trying to say that because they were intentionally missing, is how I feel. I was working. I was sitting still, and he was like popping. It almost looked like he was nervous, like he wasn't aiming his gun right at me. And then every like 5 shots, he would hit me. And again, I was
Okay.
standing still.
Where was
And
that?
I think that's an intentional feature. Maybe I could be completely off basis here.
I was
But-
watching. It was at Orison, right?
Yeah, it was at Orson. And then the only reason I say that is because if you've ever been at Grim Hex and the guards happen to aggro to you, they like laser you down, no matter what. And it's like when they do start shooting you is what I mean. Like, sometimes it takes a minute for them to shoot you, but when they do shoot, they're lasering you. And so I think that there's like some sort of behavior change that's happening with AI that they're working on, where they'll intentionally miss. And I think that up until now, maybe CIG has been messing with making AI actually super, super, super accurate when they do lock on, because they're having to compensate for the server tick rate. And I think this patch, they're kind of scaling that back, maybe, or messing with that.
Whoa.
Because the tick rate's up like what, 200%?
For a while, they were working on untrained combat AI that would basically be crappy when they engaged you. They would give like some kind of context for people who were trained like guards, and then people like civilians who just pick up a gun and can't use it. I did not at all think they would try to put that in game at this point, but they did have 93 works of that on the progress tracker, and I'm checking it out right now. That ended this month. So I didn't think they'd be adding something like that into the game just yet,
Yeah.
but that's pretty cool if you did catch that.
Yeah. And it happened in multiple places. Orison, it's in bunkers. Like the little NPCs, they'll whip out their pistol and they'll,
Yeah.
try to gun you down. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
What other kind of we've already sort of touched on this actually much earlier with the whole best feature of the year, and you guys of course picked the 318 PTU features, but I'll dive back into it again in case you didn't get to talk about any one thing in particular. But are there any big standouts in the patch for you?
I security, like I just mentioned, security
Yeah,
post
just
Korea
the
was
stuff you've already been over.
crazy.
Yeah.
The hard thing is because the stuff's crashing so often, it is hard to get to everything. Snapping on the cargo grid is great.
Yeah, I like that.
There's certainly that. The commodity kiosks I really got a good look at today. Really like those. Did some racing today. That's dangerous because I'm just gonna obsessively play it now. Uh, but in general, it just feels like, doesn't it feel like it's a patch of like a bunch of things you can do while you're waiting for the actual thing that you really want to do? Like it's a
Yeah,
bunch of like extra things that are
318?
like, oh, I could do, yeah, like, oh, I could do this, but then when I get bored of that, because I can go do that. And when I get bored of that, there's another thing I can go do.
yeah,
And when I get bored of that, I can go to prison and try that. And it just has a lot of things to check out, and they actually have meat on their bones. They're
Mm.
not just like, oh, by the way, inventory. Yeah, inventory was really cool, but how long can you dive in and learn and figure out and try out and play with your friends, when that first came out? So,
yeah. There were
yeah.
a bunch of headline additions this patch. A bunch of things
Yeah.
that you could get in and actually try, because you jump into the game and usually it's like there's one major feature that you're going to try out, and then all the rest of the stuff it's like, okay, I'll try that over the coming weeks. But in this
Exactly.
patch, yeah, you've got like 3 or 4 different things that you could jump into the game and be like, that's the main thing I want to try this patch. I want to go racing. I want to try the new prison
Yep.
stuff. I want to do salvaging. I want to check out soft death. Like, those are 4 huge things.
I haven't checked out Soft Death. I haven't seen the Orison platforms yet. Like, there's some things I still like haven't even done. There was that
So much
much
in this
stuff.
patch. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice.
It's wild. It's great.
People keep telling me to go see the sand cave, and I'm like, why? That's
Yeah.
like the one thing that I'm like, go. Who cares?
All right. That's perfect. So I was actually going to ask, are there any disappointments with this patch for you guys?
That master modes isn't in it.
Yeah.
You
The
guys
fact
expecting that with this one?
No, I wasn't
no.
expecting it. I'm just, it's hard to want to PvP or take PvP seriously in its current state, knowing that a hopefully better patch is right around the corner for PvP.
Yeah, like I can't bring myself to want to PvP knowing that those changes are coming. Like,
Okay.
oh, bunch of arena commander changes, cool. Don't care. Because I can't get excited about it yet because I know everything's changing. Why would I make this effort or deal with just getting absolutely dumpstered for a couple weeks to try and get decent enough to have a chance over for a feature that's going away? It's just like Jumptown. Why would I go play the old Jumptown knowing that the new shiny Jumptown is coming? It's just that's kind of how combat feels for me right now.
True.
And then they did the weird thing. Berks, are you disappointed with the ballistic changes, or do you like them? I don't know.
So here's the deal, right?
They need data, is what they said. So like, whatever, I'm whatever about
Yeah.
it. But
I hope that change doesn't make it into live. I personally don't care either way. Like if
Okay.
it as a PvP or as someone who I consider myself at least pretty decent at combat, I don't think it's going to affect me in a huge way. Who it affects is people who fly ships with size 3 shields and up, right? Or even size 2, like Cutlass Black, or like the 600i, the Corsair, the Connie. Ships like this are going to be much more affected by the change. And whenever I'm talking about balance changes, I like to keep the entire community in mind, not just myself.
Yeah.
So I think for the community, it's a bad change. I think that for people who are experienced at PvP, it won't really matter. I think they'll adapt. So I don't think it fits in the current state. Some people are saying it's a precursor to armor, which is hilarious. I don't think we're going to get armor for 10 years, if ever. And I genuinely believe that. Um,
Yeah.
it's an entirely different conversation opposed to making ships is like, for example, like gold standarding ships, right? Like, how do we expect armor to come in when we can't even get a few ships to gold standard in a few years? Right? And they have
Well,
to touch every ship in the game for
that's
armor to happen.
that ramp up everybody is hoping for.
Right, right. And again, maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am. Whenever I
I
say
hope
stuff
so
like this,
too.
I hope I'm wrong. It's not like
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah, I
I'm
get you.
right. I hope I'm so right. I hope that I'm wrong because it's only a benefit for me. But I think that things like this are tough when we're supposed to be a live service game, and that's why I think Star Citizen always will be is a live service game.
Mhm.
And it doesn't feel very live service when uh, the majority of the community or a lot of the community is going to get affected, I think, poorly by this ballistic change. So I am really indifferent. Like if that's the worst thing in the patch, then I don't really care. But
That's a good thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the worst
yeah,
thing.
my thing with it is I think something that bugs me about the game overall. This might be because I suck at combat. I'm absolutely terrible. But like part of the reason I suck at combat is because I feel like I don't get enough feedback on what's going on. And one of the things that really gets me is when I am dying and I don't realize it, whether my MFD is off off my view and I can't tell how close I am to dying, or it's just very quick. I feel like I don't get enough sort of audible combined with visual feedback to say, hey, you just got messed up in the back of your ship and a couple more shots and you're going to die. And I feel like if ballistics are doing that much more damage, you're what a lot of people I think look towards as the definer of how close they are to dying is their shield status. But if that's not as important because of this ballistic change, you could end up with more people coming into that situation.
you're going to have and this is who it affects, people who are again, so it's like even in ships that I didn't mention, like the Arrow, Gladius, smaller ships, if someone rolls up on you and they've got ballistics and they are good with them, you're gonna die in seconds versus being able to like see your shields are going down and sort of
Exactly.
respond.
Yeah.
There is no response to that. And actually, I had a dev come in my chat and was talking to me about it, and they were defending the change. And I just told them the truth. I said that they were, I, yeah, just genuinely disagree that it's a good change. If armor were in game, or if there was a stat that was like, hey, these ships, or these are the military, like the Vanguard and the Gladius, and these certain ships get a 50% reduction to ballistics and a 40% reduction to laser, or whatever, then I'd be a lot more open to it. I know there is that stat in game, but it's a lot lower. It's very unnoticeable. So I would like to see an additional, or maybe ballistics do less damage as a trade-off to their pin, something like that. But in their current state, there's not enough of a trade-off in its
Yeah.
current state.
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces missing to that puzzle. I mean,
Yeah.
being able to repair ships out there is a big part of running ballistics, not having to go back to a station. Also, the potential of like a temporary disabling of your ship while you're doing that rearming. I think I said repair while you're rearming. Like all these sorts of things can build into this balancing act of ballistics versus lasers, but a lot of it's missing. So we get these features that kind of halfway get into the problem, and they might actually make up more issues for people.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Let's
like
hope I'm
Berk said,
wrong.
it's just a
Hopefully it's not a big
PTU.
deal.
Hopefully, it's just a PTU focused test, and they'll move
Yeah.
on. But if a dev's coming
Yeah.
in and defending it, it's like, ooh, yikes. Okay,
might
this
be,
might
yeah.
be. We
Might
might
be
have this for a
important.
while.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit more about next year. We've talked 2022 to death, and I think
Ooh,
got some
let me bring
really
up the
good thoughts on
roadmap.
that. Yeah. So, geez, where do we even start? There are we know. Okay, how about let's start with this. I asked this to the last show. What is something that you are pretty sure is going to happen next year, but you're not exactly sure when?
I think server meshing happens next year. I cannot follow this project if I don't believe it's going to happen next year. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. Like I can't do it anymore. I can't go with this roller coaster that
Yeah.
that I've been on with them. Like this, it has to be true. The letter from the chairman's like it just has to come true. I can't keep believing it anymore. So it's like for me, I'm just like this is my last bit of hopium that I have left on this as far as like believing any sort of not necessarily timeline, but like at least the steps of the process, right? PES is most of the way towards server meshing, as they said in the letter for the chairman. So prove it, and I hope they can. It just comes down to was the conversation around letter for the chairman around PES and the amount of time that it was to get to stabilize it. It's clearly that timeline was incorrect, and
Yeah.
that's okay. It is what it is. Now it's from this point. When do we start focusing on meshing and matchmaking us into the right server so we
Yeah.
feel PES, that kind of stuff.
So
So
I'm gonna
go
jump
ahead.
in real quick, right quick
Yeah.
before the whole idea of PES being a good amount of the work towards server meshing. I'm already getting this sense that they want to make sure to set people's expectations that the amount of services that they made for PES, because they mentioned it's like I think it's like three
Mhm.
quarters of the services for server meshing were in PES. They want to make sure to clarify that it doesn't necessarily
amount of
mean
work.
server meshing is coming sooner because of it, just that
Okay.
it helps. And I mean, I'm gonna start spreading that message just to get people's expectations, but that also could mean that they are very much like, hey, next year is a goal.
Psych.
And well, yeah. Anyways, I'm
Um,
sorry, Berks. Go ahead.
no, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all knew, unless you were just a mega optimist, we all knew that Star Citizen 2022 was not the year for Star Citizen. Um, right? It's not like a awful year in my opinion. Like I had fun this year with Star Citizen for sure, and there was some good content and updates, but it wasn't going to be the year, right? Um, I think that year, quote unquote, doesn't even happen when server meshing comes in. I think it happens afterwards. I say this all the time. The most fun you'll ever have in Star Citizen hasn't happened yet. It's yet to happen. The coolest stuff, the most epic, gameplay that you'll ever get to do is still a while off, and that's cool. I love that. Now I'm going to say something a tad bit controversial that I've talked to my stream about is if they announce tomorrow that server meshing wasn't going to happen, I literally would not care. I do not think that we need server meshing to make this game good. However,
Hot take.
I do think that they need to make a decision whether to move forward with it or not. Right? Like, hey, we can do it, or hey, we can't do it. That's I do think that it either needs to continue to be worked on or continue not to be worked on. Now, obviously, they're going to continue to work on it. But if they announce tomorrow that they weren't going to do it, I would be indifferent with the project. Same with a lot of stuff, but I think that we'll maybe get server meshing next year, but it's not going to be a huge disappointment to me if we don't. Things to me that matter more are like the what we can do, not how many people are there, but what we can do. And because server meshing, while a really cool concept, uh, I'm yet to seeing the benefits from it. I do see the benefits from it, but there's a lot that needs to happen to make server meshing epic. And I'm not seeing those pieces fall into place first, like org mechanics and new UI changes and a new star map and being able like to easily traverse servers to get like with your friends and stuff. Like obviously there's a huge network of stuff that needs to happen to make server meshing really good. So is server meshing going to come next year? I hope so. Um, I do have pretty high expectations for this next year. I think the first half of the year is going to be really slow. I think that 320 or whatever patch comes after 319 could be really big. Or 4.0 if that's the patch. But I guess we just have to wait and see, honestly.
And what's that big feature for you that you think's coming next year?
I think it would be server meshing, but I think I'm more
Okay.
excited about the transition into multi-system than I am server meshing.
Okay. But just the
But
idea of new systems.
It's just yet to be seen, right? Like for me, it's yet to be seen how server meshing is going to make the game. Like I understand the principle, right? You see more people, there's more missions, like whatever, Jump Town's more epic, but I just need to see it in action. And the reason why is because these people who think there's going to be 1,000 people in one spot, I just don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think that's possible, right? There's limitations with calculating physics and stuff. I don't think PS and I don't think server meshing solve that problem. So yes, we'll get more people, but are we going to get thousands of people in the same spot? I don't know if that's ever happening.
Yeah.
Again, I hope I'm wrong.
They've definitely tried to kind of bring people's expectations down a little bit. So they maybe 1,000 people on a planet, and possibly not 1,000 people at like an outpost or something.
Right. So that's my question is, we can already have 100 people at Jumptown, right? So how many more people do we get from server meshing? And how does that change the gameplay, right? So that's really where my, not doubts, but reservations come in.
And when it comes to these big features coming next year, I think this one's kind of a funny one because salvage was always the feature. It was the next profession we were waiting for after mining. It kept getting delayed. We were always like, when is it coming next? And they were always like, oh, don't worry, a couple quarters. What is the next feature that you feel like everybody is pining for now that we've gotten that? We caught the carrot. What is the next thing that you're kind of expecting to be the big focus of the community coming? Obviously, server meshing is a big one, pyro, all that stuff, but thinking more of like the actual gameplay and game loops kind of stuff. Where do you think people are going to set their sights?
Exploration. But they don't know what exploration is, and they've explained it a million times, but people still think it's something that it's not.
Yeah,
I think we
discover
already
new
have it.
star systems.
Yeah, I think we already have it.
No,
I
I mean
think-
you remember the long distance probing like that.
Yeah.
It's just like treasure hunting. That's what I expect. I don't expect it next year. I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, they don't even talk about it anymore.
We don't have
But-
treasure hunting right now.
Not really. Not in this way.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, it's. I don't know. I have no expectations for next year. Like, do we even? There's no 319 on the roadmap. I don't know what to expect, and I think that's a good thing because I'm not there. I can't find a way to be disappointed right now, aside from server meshing not happening.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to think of like, do you guys have any ideas of some features that might be on the docket, like in 319? I don't even know.
I've got a decent amount of theories. I mean, I made a video recently of things that I think will be coming in just based on not even roadmap stuff or anything like that, just what they've worked on. But like, you never really know because they could always be working on something for 6 months and then put it on the backlog. So it's all just guesses. But I've got to think a healthy amount of features that probably some will not come and some will.
Yeah.
I just don't. I just when they tell me what's going to be in the next patch, I'll be like, all right, that looks cool, and that's how I've started just looking at this.
Best way to
just
do
don't
it.
Look that far ahead. Yeah.
It's less stressful.
Yeah. Too many people get caught up with what this game could be 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I totally believe the way to enjoy the game is just what it is right now. And so I don't know. I really don't know what to expect next year. I think that the systems falling in place like PES and server meshing, that gives me hope because after server meshing getting in, I believe that's when they can start to prioritize content 100%. Like there is no more roadblocks, at least in my mind, right? Like, hey, at least this, right? They have the limitations that they have. So now they either know they can do it or they know they can't with everything they have. There is no server meshing 2.0. There's no quantum meshing or whatever. Hopefully, you talked about this on your stream the other day.
Combining things.
Right? Mike was like, he's like, if there's another thing after server meshing, he's like, I think I'm out, And
I mean, since
it makes sense.
It's like since 2017, right? Since the terrible roadmap we got in 2016, server meshing was always that final point in terms of like, here's what we need to do to get to a good development state. They mentioned it in 2016. They said it again in 2018. I'm pretty sure they said it in 2019. Like, it's set. So
I went on a studio tour and they drew it on a whiteboard for me in 2015. Like, it's been a thing that's been on their mind for a long time. And that whiteboard looks, what's funny is the whiteboard looks exactly like the graphics from the 2019 like CitizenCon or whatever it was, or 2021 with with Turbulent. It was pretty funny. But the yeah, like they've had this thing on their mind forever, and it's just like it, in theory it works, but in theory they thought iCache was going to work
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So
It's nice to see the consistency though in that goal, and I do hope that when they get there, like you're saying, Berks, like the roadblocks, at least on the back end sort of tech side, are done.
Yeah,
and
and it's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Tomato brings up like a point about consistency. I think people think like CIG feel are not very consistent, and they are changing things and changing stuff all the time. I went back and looked at like the original pitch of Star Citizen, and Chris is like pitching exactly what he's going for still
Yeah.
now. It hasn't changed that much. The only thing they changed, which just totally ruined everything, was procedural planets. It was one of the coolest things, but it also is the thing that just like ruined everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a couple of like I would say significant differences with the original
Sure.
pitch, but you're right. It's the
Boats.
same idea. Yeah, like the
Water.
PvP slider, for example, and, you know, private servers. I think both those things will never come.
No.
If private servers ever come, it will be after live launch, and I think long after live launch. So just imagine when you think Star Citizen's coming out, and then double it,
Another
and
10
now you
years.
have private
Yeah.
servers, right? So basically never, right? We won't see them. Maybe
my
my
nurse
kids
will
will
have
see
to
them.
put my login for me to be able to experience
You
it.
can have a private server for your nursing home.
Yeah. I've talked about this, you know, let's go like, you know, 200 ways in on a Star Citizen retirement home. You know, we'll get
I'm down.
fiber. We'll
Yeah.
you know, get some PC builds, hell yeah. But yeah, I just yeah, I want to see the game progress in ways like you know, adding Vandal system. Like what I want to see is things like, you know, Vandal systems come in, and I don't know if you guys know a lot about like the Thargoids in ED.
Mhm.
But man, I would love to see something like they have with
Oh,
the
yeah.
Thargoids with Vandal, and or even like what are they called, the this like, you know, mystery race
The
that
Kurthak.
that the
Yeah.
Banu or like, or is the Shion like protect us from, because if they met us they would like destroy us, is the
So
whole
much
idea.
potential in that, dude. I agree.
Yeah, and so how cool would it be if instead of worrying about, you know, server meshing, instead of worrying about PS, we're talking about, oh, like CIG's working on this new Vandal system where when you go into it, there's no respawning, there's no, you know, stations in there. It's like a raid. You know, you go in with your buddies and you're, you know, this is a huge hitacopium, but you go in with
Oh,
your
yeah.
in your Idris and you know, your, you know, medical ships and your, you know, whatever, and you're prepared to take on these Vandal, maybe get some Vandal loot or like rare minables, you know, on unobtainium, and you get your valuables, you barely get out alive and you get out, or you get owned. The challenge and the content that potentially could come from Star Citizen eventually is, I think, really incredible. It has the potential of being one of the best games of all time. And I really hope that we get this nice mix of on rails and off rails content. We need organic content, which I think PS and Soft Death and, you know, a lot of these dynamic events do generate, like some more than others. Jumptown, very dynamic, very player driven. Siege of Orson, very unplayer driven, very players play it, but it's very on rails. It's very coordinated. It's very much like a story driven mission, right?
Yeah.
So I think a good mix of both makes Star Citizen really great. And so I'm really excited to see where CIG goes after we get these final building block necessities of server tech in. So we'll have to see.
I like the angle you're taking with that. We're like talking less about server meshing and the tech and stuff and talking more about what's actually happening with the game. I feel like that's really happened in a general sense over the last 4 years, when we're not talking as much about like the terrible glitches or the 30Ks or the crashing out and stuff like that. Now we talk a little bit more about like the balancing of the ships, or which gameplay is more fun,
Right.
or what the best way is to make money. And it's nice to see the conversation in the community start to shift more towards what you would expect in a game.
There's no point in making progress, but players want to start making it now.
Yeah. Last thing I want to close with. before we get done. And thank you so much both for all these answers. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to know, or rather, I guess the people may want to know, what something you have to tell them is going into 2023. What should they keep in mind about Star Citizen with this new year, whether they're a veteran, they're just getting in, they're coming back? Like, what do you need to remember specifically for 2023?
Like a tip?
Yeah, a tip, something to keep in mind. Don't get too hyped, get very hyped, anything.
You're still playing a tech demo. And as much as people don't want to admit it, you are absolutely the reason tier 0 exists is because they're just proving that it works. They don't need to prove that it's fun, and they don't need to prove that it's polished. They need selling is the perfect example. I think that was like one of the worst features ever put into this game. But guess what? I can take something from my inventory and I can sell it. Boom, bang, done.
It works.
CIG, we'll see you in 3 years when we gold standard our selling or whatever, right? And that's basically what is the process that will continue for the next year or more.
Yeah.
So my expectations next year are hopefully there's more of a focus on bringing more gameplay features and having them be tangible, but they will they will not be tied together for some time. And until Tony Z and Quantum wakes up from its slumber, I don't know
Great
how that's going to
hibernation.
happen. Yeah, he is in cryo sleep, bro. I don't know what's going on.
Literally
but
not
this
a
man
peep.
comes on stage and is like, yo, I have this amazing thing that is going to change your life. And then he was like, all right, I'll see you later. And just like,
I'm just gonna
bye.
sleep for a bit first. Not
You
that he's
know?
sleeping. I don't want to. No disrespect to Tony. I'm sure he's working hard, but we haven't heard from him the entire year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm giving a little shade. I'm giving some disrespect. I
Yeah.
don't not like at the person or anything, but it's like, yo, what's
No.
up, man? What's with this? If it's not one thing, it's another with this company in general. Like,
No.
just coming on stage like, yo, look at this crazy thing. To Theaters of War, you're gonna love it, dude. And then just crickets. Like, what the hell?
You guys aren't expecting Theaters of War next year?
Oh, absolutely not.
That shit is
100% no.
dead. Come on, no way.
I'm not expecting Theaters of War ever. But
Yeah,
I think
it's
Theaters of War is
dead.
a great example. I think that Siege of Orison was a mission that belonged in Theaters of War. I don't think it belonged in the PO. I think that and we talked about this, Mike. You were the one who put me on that opinion. But I totally agree with Mike, actually. I genuinely believe that Quanta the whole system is very, very overhyped. I don't think that it's going to do what people think it's going to do. I think that CIG, even saying that it's in game right now, like what? Okay, cool. Oh, my quantum prices fluctuate like 2 AUEC every once in a while. I get the principle behind it. I get the idea and why it can be great. But at the moment, CIG hasn't proved to me why it matters.
Absolutely.
For me, like the reason why I'm not a believer in quantum yet is because with the whole system that Tony talked about is if it was randomly generated, every encounter I got, like it rolled a dice, rolled a random name, random profession, random ship, random, like, is it a trader? Is it a pirate? Is it a miner? Is it whatever? Would I know the difference? If the answer is no, then why does it matter? And I think that that's what I am curious to see if Quanta can execute what we want with the dynamic stuff. I'm excited for it if it works, but currently I'm partial about it. So if it doesn't come in 2023, we'll see. I'm more excited about server meshing than I am Quanta.
I'm right there with you. I'm pretty optimistic about this game and the things they talk about with this game, but Quantum is the one thing that I think I'm still definitely on the fence about. Like we gotta see something about it. And I feel like they're getting to a point where the game is becoming developed enough that the attention is going to turn much and much more to Quantum. Like if we get 4.0, 2 systems, people are trying to trade and salvage and refuel. Let's say they have hacking and engineering working. NPCs might be able to be on personal transports. Like at that point, everybody's going to be looking for the economy. And if they don't have anything to say about it by the end of next year, that's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Exactly. In my opinion, trading is the most important gameplay loop in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And trading is the most important gameplay loop in this game because it's so heavily tied to the economy. And I think that it makes the world go round. Trading is what is going to make board gameplay. It's going to make dynamic gameplay great.
Yeah.
Moving items and the value behind items is going to make this game so much more incredible than it is right now, and valuable and interesting and dynamic for traders, pirates, security, bounty hunters, you name it. You know, if you
Yep.
need it, like if you're a player who needs an item, like that's interesting.
Somebody has a job.
So I don't
'cause of
know.
it, yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off, Mike. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna. I'm glad you did it. I thought we were done a little bit, so I was gonna just say, like, to answer the question really short, for somebody for like a tip, you're going to be marketed Star Citizen as is if it's a live service, but you have to go into it knowing that it is just still in its proof of concept phase.
Mhm.
Like that's what it is, and you cannot. I'm sorry, you cannot get me off that opinion. It is absolutely in proof of concept only.
Yeah,
Everything they're doing is to say, yeah, we can do this, and that's it.
I respect that. I have fun with Star Citizen pretty much every day.
Me too. Well, I
And
lie. Now I am.
you know,
I lied.
I love talking to people, not like even my chat, just like I'll run into people and with bounty hunting, and I'll talk to them. If they seem like a new player, I'll try to help them, and I'll kind of like RP it a little bit, and be like, I'm a agent with the, UE or whatever, hunting your bounty down, like, what got you into trouble, whatever, and just have this like, cool little interaction with people that you can't have in a lot of video games. Or maybe they don't want to team up. Maybe they aren't a new player. Maybe they do want to kill me, and they start talking shit to me. And then all of a sudden, we have this like,
Do you watch Doug the
standoff.
Bounty Hunter for inspiration? Do you like give the guy, you want to smoke, man? You want to smoke?
Yeah,
In the back of
exactly.
the
Like,
car.
hey, buddy, and I'll talk to people before they even see me. I'll VoIP them through a wall and be like, put the gun down. This doesn't have to end bloody. And I just think that's really cool that you have this dynamic, immersive environment where you can. I've had lots of people lately, pay me to do security for them while they clear their crime stat or why get them out of trouble. And I end up teaming up with more bounties, and stuff like that. So bounty hunting is a really valuable gameplay loop for me. I know that not every gameplay loop is as interesting as that. At the moment, there's a lot of work to be done. So I agree with you 100%. Look at Star Citizen for what it is, and if that's a tech demo, then it is what it is. But look at Star Citizen for what it is, not what it could be. Don't buy concepts. I'd say, if a concept is really as valuable as what it's worth, then it will be worth paying the little bit extra that it's going to be when it releases.
Yeah, very
is what
few
I
will
say.
go through the price hike that the Bane of Merchantman did.
Yeah.
I bought mine for $250.
Yeah, I bought mine for $300.
Yeah.
You guys both
And
have merchantman?
Store credit. Yeah, with store credit.
Yeah. I agree though.
I bought a Caterpillar and it's now a merchantman.
It's like you don't get FOMO. People see these
Exactly.
ships get revealed as concepts or even as in game right now. Like somebody's gonna look at the Vulture and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not like playing with the Vulture in 318. I'm gonna be so behind. Everybody's gonna unlock it and know how to play with it and like all this stuff." And it's like, nah, we're all here in like the first. If the game ends up doing what they want it to do, we're all in the first 10 to 20% of players. So you're still way ahead of everybody else. Don't worry about that. We got a special guest.
Yeah.
Who's this?
His name is Bucky. He is a very good boy.
Featuring I'm gonna put Bucky on the show notes.
He looks like he's waking up from a nap.
Yes.
But he's a very chill dog.
What the heck is this light? Awesome. Well, guys, that about wraps it up. Unless you had anything else that you wanted to say to the audience, to me, to Bucky.
Bucky, you have any wise words to people this year?
Just a little for anybody who's not watching, who's on audio platforms. Berks has got his dog with him. This is not like some random person we just dragged onto the camera.
Oh yeah, this is just my friend Bucky.
Yeah, but
yeah,
well
guys.
said, Bucky.
Yes, thank you guys, and thank you, Bucky. I'd like to give you one more chance to let everybody know where they can find your content and where they can come in and chat with you and yell at you for your opinions, including you, Bucky.
Salty Mike everywhere, salt with an E and then Mike, so no Y. And yeah, just really excited to just keep diving into all the features, learn about them. Um, I think I'm going to do a lot of salvaging and racing in the next little bit.
Yeah. For me, Berks on Twitch, Captain Berks on YouTube, and I'm excited for this year. Thanks for having me, and yeah, this is fun conversation.
Yeah, this was great, guys. I'm gonna have you definitely on another one again, Salty Mike. I mean, you're used to coming on here, Berks.
Yeah.
We'll have to have another show together. But thanks again for joining me, guys. I agree with you what you said, Salty Mike. I am definitely gonna start getting more into gameplay and just enjoying the actual features being added.
Yeah, I mean, how fun is it to just like learn how things work, right? I think
Yeah.
most of us like to do those things.
It's
And
refreshing.
yeah.
So thanks again, guys, for coming in. Thanks everybody for listening on your favorite audio platform. If you're there, or if you're on YouTube, consider leaving a comment, a like, a review, or subscribing to the podcast and checking out the other one we have going, Citizen Central. It is a once-a-month podcast with 4 other creators. We come together and talk big topics. So check that one out. Salty Mike's been on one of those before, and Berks will probably be on one in the future. And one more time, thank you so much for being here. Thanks, CIG, for your work on Star Citizen, and happy Luminalia to everybody. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. I hope you enjoy 2022, and I'll see you all next week. Or I guess next year. I'll see you next year.